of soca, classical soca violin.
Yeah, that's why
So
I was sort of drawn to your music because it's so different to what people are expecting as well. That like you said, that
yeah.
soca classical mix. I mean,
Hmm.
how did kind of people take it when you first started that mix? Were people sort of instantly drawn to it, or were they kind of skeptical at first?
They were skeptical, the staunch,
Mm.
classical fraternity.
Yeah,
It was almost blasphemous,
yeah,
you know. But eventually, as the years progressed, there was a change, and you know, locally it was more accepted. Where now the classical fraternity,
hmm
they experiment with the Caribbean fusion
yeah.
in the music. So it took a while, but it's in a better place
Oh,
in
brilliant.
terms of that style of playing. Great.
Yeah, like I still can't get my like. I'm still so. I still love the soca and classical mix though because it's so different. I mean, I
Yeah.
think we put this up before actually about what kind of drew you to classical music in the first place? Because it is so different to that soca sound. I mean, what kind of drew you originally to classical music as well?
My violin teacher at the time, he was the concert master of the National Orchestra.
Mm.
And I learned via the Suzuki method.
hmm
All right.
hmm
And when I was 14 or 13, somewhere around there, early teens, he invited me to one of the orchestra rehearsals. So
hmm
from there, I really started to, it was like a whole new world for me. It's like, wow,
yeah.
because I'm learning my little beginner pieces and so forth, but when I got into that new way of life, it was really cool for me. I met new friends there, and so that's how I really got the staunch classical training,
hmm
and then we had some tutors who would come from Venezuela
Yeah.
every summer to do a workshop, and
Mhm.
I entered some music festivals and so forth. So that's how I really got engulfed into that side of things, the classical. But
Yeah.
me being from the Caribbean, me being from Trinidad, also appreciating my culture,
hmm
I decided, you know what, let me try something here. Let me try and fuse the two.
Yeah.
And it worked.
It does. It really does. Because obviously, watching and listening to your work is incredible, and
Thank you.
it's my pleasure. And what are kind of some of the most difficult things you have to go through to make sure that both worlds kind of come together really well? Because, like we said, they are so different from each other. What are sort of the biggest challenges you have to face to make sure that both worlds really match with each other?
Yeah, it's a delicate balance
Mm,
because the classical and the soca music, of course, two different genres. So what I try to do is create how to put it, an equilibrium
hmm
within the musical grain of the final piece that I'm trying to create.
hmm
So, for example, you have a soca beat, bam, 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 and then classical has a lot of country melodies and so forth. So I have to
Yeah.
find the spaces, in between the music and the classical, where it could how should I put it, complement each other.
hmm
So I don't want to do too much, but I don't want to do too little.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when you do too much, it just becomes noise.
Of course.
So you have to find a way to really balance it too.
hmm
So that's how I go about it. I really try to feel the music and see how best I can infuse the two genres
Of
to really
course.
make sense of it.
Mm. And obviously, it really works. So keep up the amazing work. Honestly,
Thank you.
pleasure.
Mhm.
And earlier you mentioned that you got to perform for the Queen of England. I mean,
Yes.
what was that like?
No, that was cool. So at that time, Trinidad and Tobago hosted the Summit of the Americas. That was in 2009, I
hmm
believe. So we had to play for the private dinner for all the heads of state.
Mm-hmm.
So President Obama was in that dinner too at the time.
What?
Yeah. And back then, he was like a big thing because he just became president of the United States. It's like the first year. So, you know, they frock us and stuff. So we performed for that dinner. And after the dinner, you know, everyone had to line up at the corridor after for them to leave. And she passed by and she shook our hands and she picked up my violin because my violin is the electric.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, where's the rest of it? You know? And we just laughed, you know? It was nostalgic. It was cool.
That's so good to hear. That's so good.
Yeah.
And is that for you one of your favorite performances that you've done?
It's one of the memorable ones.
Mm-hmm.
You know, St. Lucia Jazz for me was big.
Yeah.
Because we performed that night with reggae artist Barrington Levy.
Mm-hmm.
We actually opened the show that night, you know, and that was actually at the time one of the biggest stages that I performed at. And it was a great experience because I actually got to bring one of the local students from the local orchestra to perform a song with us. And that was impromptu. And that was actually one of the best moments of our set, you know. So it was really a really memorable experience.
Brilliant.